So here we go, starting to record. As we press closer to spring, each year we like to talk about kind of some spring cleanup topics and maintenance things. And recently, a member of our deliverability team went to a conference on email marketing and kind of reiterated some of the best practices across our team for best deliverability. And I want to share a bunch of those points. A lot of these are probably going to be like just refreshers. Some of them may strike you as, oh, we should think about doing that, but I want to share them. Kind of some of the best practices for quality deliverability. Up on my screen here, I got a document. It's actually just an outline. I'm working on a more full-blown article on this for an upcoming edition of our newsletter, but I'm going to point out some of the high points of what's going to be in there. And first off, obviously the key with email marketing today is only sending email to people who want it and send them relevant content. That's kind of rule number one. And email marketing is really all about getting and then finally keeping permission, getting permission on the front end, letting people know what they're going to receive from you as a result of opting in, and then keep their permission by keep sending them relevant content. That's really kind of the bottom line with it. And one of the things that I like to ask sometimes when people ask me unsubscribe questions or things like that, if they're handling a complaint, does your email have a clear permission statement that tells your contacts what to expect? Think about that if you don't have one. If you do have one, great. I've got an example of one. I just saw this today. This is Roundhouse over in the UK in London, and I just love this permission kind of statement. Why am I receiving this email? We sent you this email because you signed up or have a relationship with us. To make sure it gets in your inbox, add this address to your contacts. And I love this statement. If these emails aren't your thing anymore, then unsubscribe. So I think it's just a nice, prominent permission statement, and it's kind of done with a little bit of tongue-in-cheek humor on the unsubscribe piece. So. Another thing with kind of around your address collection best practices, make sure you're cleaning as you go. Discard anything that you see that's malformed or blatantly fake. If you're running into those, obviously just get rid of them. We see a fair number of those come through. And a lot of times we see addresses that start with something like abuse at or spam at or postmaster at, info service, etc. Those are either blatantly fake or there are what's called role-based email addresses. And if you're not aware, whenever you import contacts into mail2, mail2 will automatically pluck out role-based email addresses. So it looks for things like that. You can force them in if you think they are truly legitimate email addresses, but for the most part, any of those role-based email addresses are going to get filtered out to begin with. Then obviously spam complaints generally come from people who haven't opened or maybe got onto your list somehow that they weren't sure how they got on there. You need to take spam complaints seriously and monitor them frequently. If you're not monitoring them, you want to do it. And quite honestly, amongst performing arts, the performing arts segment, we tend not to see a lot of spam complaint problems. Our performing arts senders on Mail2 are very reputable. Our spam complaint rates, if you remember back to an earlier webinar, either December or January, I don't remember which, but we talked about kind of some of the sending stats with Mail2. Our spam complaints are really, really low compared to a lot of other segments. So if you do get the occasional spam complaint, don't sweat too much about it, but keep an eye on them. Do keep an eye on them because they can start to creep up over time. So reviewing your sending practices. Obviously, only send to people that want to receive email from you. Again, something that within the performing arts segment is generally not a big deal. I see more problems with that in other business segments. Performing arts organizations tend to send to only people that are really interested in what you have to offer. Here's one that I do like to remind people about. If you do have a permission statement or some type of policy online about your email marketing, is your sending frequency in line with that? Sometimes those two things can get out of sync. Maybe that sending permission statement is out of date and it no longer matches really what you do from an email marketing strategy. Check it. If you don't have one, think about it think about making it public, perhaps in your footer. If contacts haven't been mailed in 6 months to a year, definitely consider redoing a re-engagement campaign to them before you kind of start hitting them with additional email marketing. Studies have shown, I think we've talked about this on past webinars, the average life expectancy of an email address these days is a little less than a year. And if they're personal email addresses, a lot of times they're just abandoned. People get tired of receiving email marketing at them. They just stop looking at them. And they literally just kind of build up there and there's no action taken with them. So be aware of that. Be aware of the average lifespan. Obviously with business email addresses, people move to different jobs, companies merge and change their email address domains and all that kind of stuff. If you've got some contacts that are over a year old, they're probably stale. They're probably old and you probably want to consider letting them go. And then something that a lot of you have heard me talk about previously, on your subscription center, really think about using triggered welcome emails or drip campaigns for any new contacts. It's a great place to put your permission statement, your policy on sending frequency, that type of thing, out in front of them when they sign up so they know what to expect. Questions, comments so far on any of those? Here's one that I know just will make some email marketers really bristle, but I love it. Fear not the unsubscribe link. An unsubscribe is always better than a spam complaint, or worse yet, a direct complaint, customer service type complaint. Consider multiple unsubscribe links in your emails. Make them prominent. Consider using the single-click unsubscribe option if you are getting any types of patron complaints or people saying, I don't know how to unsubscribe from this email list, that type of thing. Single-click unsubscribe option in mail2, we change when you set that up under your account settings, it basically changes the behavior of the unsubscribe link in the footer of an email. In the default, what the unsubscribe link and the manager preferences link behave the same way. They will basically take the patron to the subscription center that is personalized based on that email address that they click through from. In a single-click unsubscribe setup, the unsubscribe link is literally that. They click on that and it automatically creates a global unsubscribe. So it can shortcut that. Something to consider if you're dealing with a lot of complaints. You can change the behavior of the unsubscribe link to be single-click unsubscribe. If you do that, I would definitely recommend that you say that. You change the text for that link to say single-click unsubscribe. That way they know that if they do that, it's one and done, and then keep the manage preferences link right next to it. So consider setting up lists with different sending frequencies. This came back as a tip from the conference, and it's something that we're looking into more as a platform in ways to kind of make this easier or automated, maybe like suppressions or something like that. But in the interim, maybe you have a list that only gets one email per month and other lists get email more frequently. That would be one way to handle it. Got a really good example of this that I came across the other day. I I'm subscribed to a company called Duluth Trading Post. They make really cool heavy-duty outdoor clothing and luggage and stuff like that. Maybe you're familiar with them. Anyway, I bought a piece of really nice luggage from them not too long ago. It's made out of fire hose material. It's awesome. I love it. But when I did that, because of the implied consent to receive email from me, which is within the limits of email marketing regulations, I got a lot of email from them. I was getting probably 3 or 4, maybe more a week, and I just found myself deleting them. So I know who they are. I know what they offer. I know that I'll go back to them for products. I don't need to be hit with every little offer that comes through. So I clicked on their Manage Preferences link and looked at the options that were available there. And they had one on there that said, I still want to be on the list, but just send me less email. And when I do that now, I did that, and now I receive one a week. So we're looking at that type of setup situation, ability within our mail2 subscription center to be able to offer something like that. But that's another way that you can kind of keep people happy by maybe giving them the choice to receive less email or get on a list that sends on a less frequent basis. Questions, thoughts on that at all? Christine is asking, I like your list. Will this, yeah, I'm going to PDF this up and send it to everybody. I will definitely do that. There's a bunch of other stuff on here as well, and we'll get to that. I'm going to quick check the chat window here. Looks like we have no questions in the chat window. Okay, bounce processing. Know that hard bounces do affect sender reputation, okay? And with mail2, we handle that, if you're probably aware of this, but if you're not, basically a hard bounce occurs when we receive a signal back from the email provider that says this email address is no longer valid, doesn't work, no longer accepting emails, something that is fatal. We immediately take that email address and mark it as hard bounced, and we leave it in your mail2 dashboard, take it out of active status so it doesn't count against your active contact quota or your billing. We just keep it in there as a permanent suppression. And the reason we keep it in there is so we don't ever email it again. So we do have a way to handle that. But the question I often ask when we start talking about hard bounces with new organizations is, do you currently have a process in place to look at hard bounces on some type of regular basis? On a completed campaign report, you can pull up the list of hard bounces, a CSV with the hard bounces on there. If you look at those, a lot of them make sense. You go, okay, this looks like this address was at somebody's work email address and they moved on. Okay. But sometimes you'll see things like malformed email addresses in there. Somebody made a typo when they put in John Voigt at AOL.com. It was John Voigt at AOK.com. Obvious things like that. And in those particular cases, you can kind of screen for those and maybe kick them back to customer service staff or box office staff and say, hey, can you look at this one? Can you look at the constituent record on this? Maybe do some follow-up to find out if this is truly the right email address, or maybe fix it. So making sure that you're doing some due diligence. You can get a contact back on your list, somebody who wants to be engaged, and then just keeping tabs on your level of hard bounces. Same thing with temporary bounces too. Temporary bounce rates, they can be a sign that ISPs are putting temporary blocks on you. Okay, this is kind of a situation that we see crop up once in a while. Not very often, but it does. And it kind of plays out like this. You'll look at your campaign comparison report or a completed campaign report, and you'll see kind of an uptick in soft bounces. And you'll pop that open, and a lot of the addresses will all be the same domain, like AOL. AOL does this probably more than any other major ISP. You'll see a whole bunch of soft bounces with all the same domain. And kind of what has played out there, it doesn't take a lot of spam complaints or hard bounces to a certain, a given ISP or a specific ISP for that to get flagged according to kind of their threshold of what they'll accept from a certain sender. A lot of times, one spam complaint on a relatively small send can actually put a 24-hour soft bounce block from an ISP on there. Say, for example, you've got a campaign that is going out to maybe a few hundred people. About 20 of those are AOL addresses. Okay. Let's say just 2 of those 20, or even 1 of those 20, hits the spam button. That's 5% of that ISP's recipients of that email campaign. That is enough for AOL. It's above their 3% threshold. That's enough for AOL to say, oh, that's a violation of our sending policy, and they put a 24-hour block on you. So maybe the next day you have a big campaign going out, tens of thousands of email addresses on there, and you'll see soft bounces uptick in that, and it's really the upstream smaller send that caused the problem. And that's one of the reasons why we talk about this next thing is list maintenance. Insist on quality over quantity. And that really kind of comes down to how many non-engaged contacts are in your database. You look at the contact engagement report under the reports menu, and you kind of see that breakout. How many have opened at least one campaign and how many have done nothing. Okay, it's that unengaged percentage that the majority of spam complaints will come from. It kind of shakes out like this. Let's say I'm on AOL and I don't check my email a lot on AOL, but I come in and will just kind of look at all the email marketing that I have in there. And you can do this in Gmail too. You can do it in a lot of the web-based email clients. You can just kind of flag all the emails that you want and just hit the spam button. And in one fell swoop, you're sending out a lot of spam complaints. And let's say your organization has 4 or 5 emails sitting in there because maybe this person has been on your list a long time but just hasn't opened anything. They're basically cleaning out their inbox with the spam filter, and that now just put 4 or 5 spam complaints onto your sending reputation. So that's why we always suggest doing an annual or a semi-annual re-engagement campaign. Remove unengaged contacts and watch how your day-to-day metrics improve. Spam complaints go down, bounces go down, all kinds of stuff. So it's a good thing. So that's kind of the quality over quantity best practice that we continually preach. So. Question from Beatrice in the window. Is there some sort of mechanism that automatically cleans our lists? For example, correcting gmail.com into .com instead of doing this manually? No, there isn't at this time. It has been discussed. It's, from my understanding of it, technically it's not as easy to do as it sounds, but I know it has been kicked around from a development standpoint. So. No, it'll simply take that as a malformed email address. If it finds it, and in some cases it can't find it, it'll mark it as invalid, like on an import. If for some reason it got through the import, it would eventually hard bounce. And probably the best example of this is, let's say it's a business email address and we don't have any record of what it really should be before, like the .com or the .net or whatever. We wouldn't know how to scrub it. But that after the on the end part of the domain, the .com, the .edu, stuff like that, .net, we talked about that. it's certainly something that is on the development roadmap. Where it falls, it's out there a ways because technically it's not quite as simple as it sounds, I guess. Does that answer your question, Beatrice? Cool. One other thing that we recommend for organizations is adding our emailcampaigns.net SPF record to your organization's domains. A lot of you have done this already. And there's a support article out on the support site. It's called What is SPF and Sender ID? And when I email this out as a PDF, you'll just be able to click on this link. But this will kind of how this breaks out is you pass this article along to your network administrator or your email administrator for your organization. Say, hey, can you add emailcampaigns.net to our SPF record according to this article? And they go, oh yeah, I know what that is. And you can actually look that up. We're able to look that up on a website to see what kind of, what's on your SPF and Sender ID record. And the article talks about that. Once you do that, you basically no longer have to check the Authenticate checkbox on the Details tab of a campaign. Most of you are probably doing that now. If you haven't updated your SPF record for your organization, most of you are probably checking that Authenticate box. But on occasion, it gets forgotten. And we'll see an uptick in soft bounces come from that. So it's something to keep in mind. Either the Authenticate checkbox, check it religiously, or update your SPF and Sender ID. My preference, personally, if I were king, I would have everybody do the SPF record. So keep that in mind. It's definitely something that helps deliverability. Questions on kind of the whole deliverability stuff? Okay, if not, some other maintenance stuff specific to mail2 in the spirit of spring cleaning. Some of the things that you want to look at on your dashboard from time to time is getting rid of outdated save searches, outdated groups, outdated internal lists, and outdated custom fields. When you do that, when you clean those out, it actually makes those screens function faster, and it can help you find things a lot faster. When you delete out save searches and you're over on the recipients tab, for example, even though the filter mechanism is in there now, it can really help you kind of narrow down what you're looking for and just makes things more efficient. So removing those on a regular basis, just, it's a great Friday afternoon kind of thing. 3 o'clock on a Friday, put the headphones in and delete save searches and, and old internal lists and that type of thing. If you have a lot of them, and I mean like dozens and dozens and dozens of them, we can do some scripting for a bulk removal action. Just have to submit a support ticket, and we'll ask you, what range of them you want taken out. Once they're gone, though, they are gone. So we have to be a little bit careful. You have to be a little bit careful on where you direct us to remove them. But if you got a large volume, we can definitely help you out with that. And then also, over in Tessitura and List Manager, everybody knows about the mail2 radio button, or the TMS radio button. That exposes those Tessitura List Manager lists to the import dropdown on the mail2 side. That can get very long. And going in and unchecking that radio button to get those lists so they don't render on that mail2 dropdown, that can be helpful too, helpful from being able to find it and work more efficiently. So, just some minor housekeeping things to keep in mind. And actually, Teresa Dean, I see that you are on. Do you know if, I've been asked this before and I don't know the answer. Is there a bulk way to uncheck that radio button in List Manager? Or maybe, is Rebecca on? Rebecca Harriman? Rebecca, do you know that? if you don't offhand.
No, no, that's fine, John. I should just unmute
Okay.
us. There is not like a global thing in the application, but you know, you can actually could do that in the back end
Okay.
to do like an update statement in Management Studio.
All right. Cool. Good to know. All right. Any questions on kind of the dashboard or dashboard maintenance items? Bye-bye, Christine. Okay. Canada's anti-spam legislation, or CASL. Recently, this law was. Oh, Teresa Dean says, "Sorry, I was muted." Don't feel bad, Teresa. I do it all the time. Canada's anti-spam legislation, CASL. Canada recently passed a new suite of essentially marketing laws. They're not solely about email, but a big component of them is about email. They also pertain to telemarketing, SMS messaging, a bunch of other things. Okay, and in a lot of ways, it's really similar to the U.S. CAN spam law, but with some differences. And really just what I want to do today, I have to give you my typical disclaimer. This is not legal advice. This is just kind of some key points that any email marketer that has contacts in Canada that you probably need to be aware of. And again, if you're familiar with what you can or can't do under CAN spam regulations, the Canadian version of it, CASL, is going to be very similar. And the thing is here, if you're sticking to rule number one of email marketing is give opted-in people content that they want, you're going to be fine. And that's kind of the bottom line with it. But anyway, it is a new law, and I want to point out some key points with it. One area in CASL, express consent, it's it's pretty much on par with what we have in mail2, and mail2 has been set up to be compliant with CAN spam. And the key points with this is your sign-up form needs to state the purposes of consent to email. Okay, and that is handled by selecting buttons, radio buttons for lists, and having good explanations or good descriptions on each of those lists, telling the contact what to expect by subscribing to that list. So covered, shouldn't be an issue. And then the name of the sending organization, again, covered on the subscription form. Your name is right there. Makes sense. Implied consent is a little bit different under CASL. It's a little bit more specific than CAN spam, but the intent is very similar. Implied consent includes an existing business relationship, such as a customer, or a non-business relationship. Like a volunteer or a donor to a nonprofit, and then then basically honoring any email address that has a conspicuously posted statement on it that says they don't want to receive unsolicited email messages. So, like if you're gathering up emails or gathering up email addresses from some other source, and on that message from that email address it has a statement on there, you can't actually include that. So that's kind of the implied consent area of it. Comment from Beatrice. Chatting with someone who creates. Yes. Beatrice made the comment in the chat when it was only meant for me. Said having pre-checked boxes on your opt-in form does not follow the legislation. So basically, if you have your subscription center is set up with default list checked, that is apparently outside of the legislation. I did not get that from what I read, so thank you for that, Beatrice. Message content, and these are all again covered in mail2 if you're using templates, and actually the MQS requires these things. So the identity of the sender. If you're using a standard template, you know about the company address token, that covers all of that. The mailing address, and either a phone number, email, or web address, it's all covered in the standard footer, and an unsubscribe mechanism. And that is the unsubscribe link, or the Manage My Preferences link, which takes you to the subscription center. And like I said earlier, if you abide by rule number 1, send relevant content to people who want to receive it, you're going to be in great shape. So it's not like a gigantic change if you're used to complying with CAN spam, U.S. CAN spam regulations. If you're doing what you continue to do in that regard, you're going to be fine. A couple of websites on here that you can look at more information on CASL and CAN spam. I will provide this in the PDF. And you know, if you ever have a question about it, definitely consult a legal professional on CASL or CAN spam. And any questions, other comments on that at all? Okay. I did get one. I have to go back and find it. I got one question in. I think it was from Shanna regarding the responsive design templates.
If you want. So I have the mobile responsive templates that I'm trying to shift over to. And I have one that I just made a draft of, and it's using the 2-column template. And in Outlook, when I got the test email, it got rid of one of the columns, and I can show you that. And I was wondering if there was anything I could do in the HTML to prevent that from happening, because I know sometimes in Outlook it doesn't really read the code as well. Like if
that would be an understatement, Shanna.
Yeah, HTML is not very Outlook friendly,
no.
Especially if you put in a paragraph. It gives you a foot of space. But
I've seen similar things in the mobile optimized, and we've run a number of inbox analysis on that one. I think that's probably what I'll do, Shanna. Is I'll let me know. Send me an email. Let me know the name of the campaign.
Okay.
It is 99.999% Outlook. All right. I want to make sure, but it is very likely Outlook based on some of the other things that we've seen with it. Outlook simply ignores a lot of the HTML that's necessary for responsive design.
Yeah, well, sometimes when an image is centered, and it's centered in Google, and it's centered in every other web browser, but Outlook won't center it, I just add a center tag to the image. I just center it like it's text, and that works. So I don't know if there's any workaround for Outlook. God forbid anyone actually open an email in Outlook. So I don't want to send it out since the column is completely deleted. But
I'll have to look specifically at that particular situation with it, see if we can't come up with a workaround for it. But for the most part, some of the things that we've found with Outlook and the responsive design, there's nothing there, simply because Outlook is 2007, 2010 are about the same. And I'm guessing you're probably talking about Outlook 2007 or 2010, correct?
I think I'm in 10.
Okay, yeah, they're both equal bad in most email marketers' opinions, and unfortunately, they're not fading as fast as I would like to see. They are going down in terms of number of opens that we see on them. One thing that I had this conversation yesterday with a client in Australia, Bell Shakespeare Company. Same kind of deal. They're in Outlook 2007, so they're even further back. And I said, well, let's take a look at some of your completed campaign reports and look at the email client tab. And let's get a feel for how many of your readers are opening on Outlook. And it was actually higher than I would have anticipated. It was somewhere between, we looked at 3 or 4 campaigns, it was somewhere between 9 and 11% are opening on Outlook 2007 and 2010. Okay, so 10%, 10% of your opens, it's more than I would like to see. We're probably not seeing that much here in the U.S. and Canada. I would say you're probably going to see less unless there are certain markets. I know in Washington, D.C., Outlook is huge because of all the government using Outlook.
Right.
So it's kind of market by market, but I would expect that perhaps you might see a smaller percentage of your opens than 9 or 10%. Okay. Then we kind of have to contrast that to what's our open percentage on mobile devices that these things were really built for. We looked at, in the case of Bell Shakespeare Company, 34 to 36%. So you kind of have to weigh that percentage and say, do we want to not use the mobile optimized templates to appease our, percentage that are on Outlook? Or, do we just kind of roll with the times? And what they landed on as kind of the workaround, they put some additional text in the top bar. They decided to stay with the mobile optimized templates, knowing full well that Outlook was not going to treat that layout. It was a multi-column layout. It wasn't going to treat that layout well. It's going to put some additional space in and kind of change some of the sort of the alignment of columns and things like that. So they decided to put additional text in a different color in the top bar that said something along the lines of Outlook 2007 and 2010 users, we recommend that Outlook 2007, 2010 users view this message in browser, and they created a view in browser link on that. And it popped out predominantly in the top bar. So that was one organization where they landed with it. I suspect that the issue that you're experiencing, if we can't find a workaround, maybe there is, you might be faced with that kind of similar choice. Do we abandon responsive design for a low number of Outlook users? So,
well, I'm looking at a smaller email right now to what is basically going to be the same list, and Outlook is 7.7%, and just iPhones alone are 33%, so I think mobile responsiveness is definitely trumping everything.
It really kind of comes down to a choice, and then trying to be as, I guess, customer friendly with that as possible. So, but we'll take a look. What we'll do, send me the name of the campaign. We'll run an inbox analysis test on it. We'll take a look at it, see what we can do.
Okay, just emailed it to you, so
Excellent.
You will have it.
Excellent. Any other questions at all from the group today? Beatrice put a note out to everybody, said CASL comes into effect July 1, 2014. And yes, it applies to anybody who sends commercial emails. Anything else today, gang? If not, I bid you all good day and think spring. For those of us who live in the snow belt, it's been a brutal winter, and hopefully it's going to warm up soon. For those of you who live in the sun belt, send some of that warm weather our way. We could appreciate it. And we'll talk to you next time. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.